Hello, everyone. Welcome to episode 25 of Brawling Pit, where we talk everything about Brawl, a standard legal commander format. I am with your host, Johnathan Chang. Joining me in the line is Jacob.
Yo.
Hey, yo.
Yo.
Yo. How you doing?
I'm not bad. How are you?
I'm pretty good, because they just reprinted Chromatic Lantern.
Oh my god. No, you're kidding, right?
I'm not kidding. It is a card. There are a lot of good
Like,
cards that are...
it's not like a supplementary set. Like, it's going to be in standard.
It is going to be in Guilds of Ravnica. A lot of good cards are, and we're going to talk about all of them.
Is Joda rotating?
No, Joda is staying.
I just had to check. I mean, I was really hoping the answer was no to one of those, but no.
Yeah, but every single card that's being spoiled right now can go into Joda.
No.
So Joda is getting
what
uber buffed.
What are you doing?
But yeah. So we'll talk in depth about like a lot of these cards, like Chromatic Lantern, in an upcoming episode, and how it impacts Joda as a commander,
and how all the other commanders have to bow down,
and how all the other commanders have to bow down, and how Modrotha is also a lot more powerful with the set going out. But I think today we want to actually talk about something that doesn't tie us down and make it set specific. This is something that can last across the lifetime of Magic. It is an evergreen topic called card advantage and quality.
Yes. And like this is something that has been done by many different people in just all sorts of ways. And while that's great, if you have the time, maybe you should go check out those sources too. But personally, we feel that none of them went like very deep into the theory. They gave you like patterns and symptoms of what it looks like, but they didn't go very far into the theory of like why.
It definitely could be very important. And in fact, it might be more important in a single format like ours, because we just simply don't see the same card twice most of the time, unless you're playing Rats.
Yeah, and since we're not EDH, we're Brawl in that, we only have 59 cards plus a commander, like, every card that you pick needs to be really important.
Yeah.
Like, it should, if you're being competitive, obviously if you're just playing casual, whatever, I play those decks from time to time too, but, like, generally when you're trying to, like, optimize your list, you want to make sure all of your cards are fulfilling a very critical function.
Yeah. So, speaking of cards.
Yeah. Speaking of cards,
what is a card?
Yeah, what is a card? I don't. What do you think a card is?
I think a card is a piece of cardboard with ink on it.
Is it like a composition of materials that's trade secret of Wizards of the Coast?
Well, no, because if you're there can be plenty of cards. So, for example, my credit card would be an IP of like Visa.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
No, I hold the same thing. I think cards are just generally cardboard, but they're not always cardboard.
Yeah,
but
some material.
In this case, we're talking about Magic though. We're talking about Magic cards, not Yu-Gi-Oh cards. Yeah, not Pokemon cards. Not Force of Will cards. Magic cards.
No Hearthstone cards.
Yeah, no, not Hearthstone cards. I don't know. Can we even semantically call them cards? Like they call them cards, but like they're just pixels.
I think you can call them cards.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the artwork depicts
why
cards.
not?
So
What else do you call it?
pixels and data.
Okay, so you have a stack of data and you bring it to battle.
Yep.
With other data stack.
Well, battle also only being a stack of data too. Logical operators.
So you're dataing data.
Yeah.
Why you data?
Why do we data?
You put some data in the data so you can data while you data. Do you like data?
Too much data. Too much data.
Anyways.
But in the sense of Magic, what do we mean? What do you think you mean when you say what's a card?
Well, I think a card is a resource. It's something that changes the rule of the game in terms of Magic, at least. Because Magic has very large set of rules, but everyone is playing on the same ground in the beginning of the game before you play your first land. Everyone is playing by the same rules, but the moment you play a card, those rules changes for you. So, for example, if I play a really busted card that's being reprinted called Goblin Electromancer, now the rules change for you because instant and sorcery spells for you cost one less to cast.
When I was first learning Magic, that was like probably the most helpful statement like that I could remember when I was like first picking up the game. Was like, okay, you have to set up rules, but the cards change what the rules do or what they say. That was probably the most helpful like mindset when I was first learning.
Yeah.
Um, and in those fundamental rules, is the rule that you're only drawing one card at a turn.
Uh huh.
That's like the fundamental,
Uh
right?
huh.
Like that. Yeah, that's really important.
Yeah. Until you finally run into that card called Divination in a draft. 200 blue, draw two.
Now, why would we say divination's good?
Divination is good because it draws you cards.
And why do you think that's good?
I don't know. Why is it good?
Well, I think it's good because like I mean like obviously we could say here you could just say it was good, but like I guess like to get into the theory, I would say it's good because you're breaking that rule
Mm
of one card a turn.
hmm. Mm hmm.
Um and your opponent is still constrained by that one card a turn rule too. Not just you, but your
Okay.
opponent. And so now this might seem kind of obvious, but you've seen an extra card. You know, like you spent a card and you see two extra cards, so you're netting an extra card.
Yeah.
And now you're like if you have 5 cards and your opponent has 5 cards, and you play divination, and you have 6 cards
Yeah.
total.
A lot of times seeing more cards helps you win the game because you're seeing more tools to help you change the rule of the game.
Yeah, you have more options.
To bend the win rate towards your favor.
There's a lot of different types of exchanges. You know,
Mhm.
like we would probably say divination is like a 1 for 2. You're spending 1 card and you're getting 2 in return.
Okay, I can see that.
Yeah, but exchanges don't just have to be in like the perspective of like how many cards am I spending versus how many do I get back. It can also be spending cards to make sure that your opponent's cards are useless or dead
Oh,
or
geez.
or like they can't use them anymore.
Okay.
So what might be like an example of that?
Um, I don't know. So this may be a kind of a niche example, but I think this is something that I ran into like a few weeks ago when I was having trouble with my mana base. I had a million swarms and one plains, and my opponent destroyed my plains. And now my whole hand full of white cards are now useless.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's pretty rough, dude.
yeah.
Yeah, and actually, that's actually a form of virtual card advantage, which we'll get into in a second. But I was actually getting at sweepers.
Ah, I see.
Yeah, so like, let's say you play Wrath of God. Wrath of God just says destroy all creatures, and that's great.
They can't be regenerated.
They can't be regenerated. That's also important sometimes. Now, that's 1 card on your end, but if your opponent has 3 creatures out, 3 creature cards, like let's say, like, we're assuming that everything's a card so far. So they have 3 creatures out. You have made their 3 cards useless because they're in the graveyard. They can't do anything with
Hmm.
them for now. For your 1 card, so that's also an exchange. You got a 3 for
It
1.
is. Absolutely is.
Yep.
So in some sense, removal is also a card advantage engine.
Yeah, or
If
it
you
doesn't have to be either. You know, it can just be strict 1 for 1s. It means, you know, you're spending 1 card and you're making them get rid of a card, or you're destroying a card on the battlefield.
right.
And you actually jumped right into the virtual card advantage, but it's also it can also be known as virtual card disadvantage. And this is a slightly semantical, but to simplify, it's just about how you frame it. Um, so in your situation where you had your only source of white got destroyed, for you it's virtual card disadvantage because all those cards are dead in your hand.
Hmm. Until I
But
draw into planes.
right until you draw into a planes, and your opponent had virtual card advantage the reason why we say it's virtual and not real card advantage is because you still have those cards in hand.
Yeah, no one got rid of them. They're still there. I'm still gripping at it, looking at it, and crying. It didn't change my situation.
And like another like example of that is like hexproof. Like let's say you're playing 9 hexproof and your opponent is like a black and white deck that has a bunch of target removal. Well, if you only ever play hexproof cards, then those cards don't do anything. Like when they draw into them, they basically skip their draw step. And so once again it goes back to the fundamental rule of divination where like if you can break those rules to your advantage, then you're giving yourself more odds to win.
Yeah.
And yeah. But what about like death triggers that leave behind creatures? This is gonna get slightly more advanced. What about like Voice of Resurgence or any creature that leaves behind another creature when it dies or leaves? What about those?
Well, I think then if those are killed by like a target removal, then it'll be like a half for one. I consider the tokens like half a card. No matter how good the token is, the token can be amazing, but it's still
Right.
half a card in your deck because your deck, your brawl deck, has 59 cards in there, and it just so happens that maybe one card creates a creature and also a token that comes with it, but that's like half a card.
Right. And while I think that's a great like approximation when we're discussing theory, which is good. But like obviously in a real game, you can't have half I mean, I guess if you want to get the scissors out and cut half a card, but I mean, no, who wants to do that?
Don't cut my
Um
don't cut my cards. Deck is off limits.
cut your own card, not cut mine. But like you can't have like half a card. So like I think like a good way to think about it would be like, well, sometimes maybe your token's really good. Yeah, you remember the advent of the worm token, right?
Hmm.
Okay, so like sometimes you're gonna get one card out of it, like so, or like you're gonna exchange a real one card for your token. But maybe sometimes you don't. So maybe it averages around to maybe half, which is where we get that half figure. And
Sure.
yeah, I don't know. I think a lot of it's just like perspective, like because um the system is based on like rational versus like subjective,
Y-
whereas
Yeah, I think it really depends, and it depends also what your card says, right? So, for example, there's a card in an ancient time known as 2012, in a block known as Return to Ravnica. A card called Trostani Summoner was printed in Dragon's Maze. It's a 7 drop for a 1/1. Costs
wow, dude,
5 green
that's the end of
white.
the card, right? That's it. That's the end of the card. I would play it.
Luckily
No,
there are
terrible.
more. Luckily there are more. I mean, this card is definitely not the reason why Dragon's Maze is known as the worst set of Magic. Well, one of them, anyways. Um, but when it comes into Battlefield, you create a 2/2 White Knight creature token with Vigilance, a 3/3 Green Centaur creature token, and a 4/4 Green Rhino creature token with Trample. So the 1/1 isn't really 1/4 of a card. You cannot say the 1/1 is 1/4 of a card because, well,
It's not a card at
things
all. It's a token.
the things it creates are so much bigger than the
Yeah,
1/1,
yeah,
right? So this card, quote unquote, pumps out 3 cards, but I don't know. I don't know if
yeah.
the 1/1 may not
Well,
even be half a
let
card.
me let me throw this at you though. Is we'll also get into this later, but game state also matters a lot here too.
Uh huh.
And this is where I was talking about like that translation between like real numbers, like with raw card advantage, raw being like real, like we can physically count our cards, versus virtual card advantage, where it's more like effective card advantage, where it's similar, or like in effect, hence the name virtual, but it's not real, it's not physical. Um, is let's say you play Trostani Summoner on an empty board, your opponent is on control. They've got a grip full of cards. What if they don't have a sweeper though? But they have like a bunch of removal. But they're like really low in life total too. What if they like if they in order not to lose the game, they need to spend 4 cards on Trostani Summoner tokens to not die.
Yeah.
You just cashed in. Like you converted that to real card advantage.
Yeah.
But that doesn't always happen.
Effectively is a 1/4 if that happens.
Yeah, but like that doesn't always happen. So like in order to like approximate when we're just trying to like pick cards, like
Yeah,
you have
sorry.
to like you have to like kind of arbitrarily throw a number out there sometimes.
Yeah, it's a 4 for 1, effectively. And
Yeah, but like not all. I
yeah,
agree with
not
your assessment
always.
though.
Yeah,
Yeah, I agree with your assessment. On average, maybe like 2 or 3 cards
yeah,
worth of value out of this
yeah.
card.
There are times when they cast a board wipe, then it's just a 1 for 1.
Yeah.
Or
Well,
when they cast a torpor orb before you cast a Trostani Summoner, you're just sad.
yeah. Or like, what if they have like a big trampler, and what if you're on the flip side of that situation where like um you're control-ish deck, and they have a big trampler, and you play Trostani Summoner, and you have to block literally everything to trade with that creature to not
Yeah,
die. Well,
then
now
it
it's
would
only a
just
one
be a
for
1
one.
for 1.
Yeah.
But that's another
So
thing though, like creatures themselves can be removals too. So
mhm,
you are kind of playing 4 removal spells on this one card.
right, and like the point that we're trying to illustrate here is that the value of our virtual card advantage will vary from game to game state to game state. And like going back to that example with your land, um, yes, your cards were dead in your hand when you didn't have that white source. The minute you drew back into that plains, though,
Mhm.
they're on again.
Until it gets blow up again.
Right.
Then I'm sad again.
Then you're sad again. But it's like it just goes to show that this evaluation is one important, but two also very difficult to do, and three is very dynamic. It's never it's never static. You can't just always say, yeah, this will always give me 3 cards of value.
Yeah, I think I don't think you can ever say always in a game of
Yeah.
Magic.
Well, I mean, you can with divination, like raw cards, but like that's why it's called raw card advantage.
What if your definition gets countered? I mean, I don't know. I would,
Oh, that's true.
but
No, you're right. That's a good point. Um, in that case, I guess it would be like a guaranteed 1 for 1 then.
yeah, it's always
Hmm.
guaranteed 1 for 1, at least. So I guess it's good. But
Yeah.
what if there are things that says counter the first spell that are cast each turn?
Ooh. Ooh, now we're getting even more complex. Dude, that's a good point. Hmm. Well, I would say that the fundamentals have shifted such that well, one, you're not favored anymore. Yeah, I guess you're right. No, that's a good point. See, raw card advantage you can't even always bank on. But would we say that it's a fault with the raw card advantage system, or would we say that's virtual card advantage for the other player?
I think it would be a virtual card advantage.
I agree. It's kind of weird. So like we warned you this was gonna go super hard into theory. Um, I think like as an axiom, rock card advantage doesn't exist until it happens. Like until you can observe it.
Yeah, exactly.
So like with the case of divination, right? Like divination in your hand doesn't do anything, but like once you play it and it resolves and you draw your cards, because there are some effects that stop you from drawing multiple cards in a turn.
Hmm.
Then you can realize that it's like that. I'm trying not to use like an accounting term, but I have to. You can realize that that card advantage
Yeah,
when you now have a
you're
physical.
cashing in. You're
Yeah,
cashing in the value, the reason why you put definition in your deck. It's trying
exactly.
to get
Well
those three
said.
cards.
Well said. So we warned you. We did warn you. This was gonna get a little theory
Oh yeah,
heavy.
we're big nerds. So we we've been talking about that though. Like, yeah, cards that can realize their value. They do something that you can see is tangible. You drew 2 cards. You play a creature that makes more creatures. Fine. What if there's a card that doesn't really do anything except help you survive? Like,
Well,
gives you what a card that gives you more life, for example. A lot of people always says life gain is bad because life gain doesn't win you the game.
you know, I used to. I'm really glad that I have had time to like fully flesh out like this system, because I have an explanation for that. There is an explanation for that. So if you never realize the benefit of that life gain, then yeah, we would like every spike competitive player would be in agreement. Generally, you don't want to be playing life gain. You'd probably rather be playing like a more proactive strategy, and generally those are more successful anyways. Um, However, on the other hand, um, if you're dying and this life gain card will let you see the next turn, then that card has value.
Yeah,
That
that
card
card did
is worth
everything.
Yeah, that card is probably worth more than your whole hand. If you have a whole grip of cards and they don't do anything for you, and then you have one card in your hand that says gain 20 life, and maybe your opponent can't kill it the next turn, then your whole grip of cards is worth less than that one card in your hand.
Because you were playing that card.
Yes, you have to, or otherwise you're losing the game.
Yeah.
And speaking of losing the game, what do you think about losing the game? Ritual card advantage.
I think losing the game basically means whatever cards that's in your hand when you lose the game are being blanked out because you didn't play them.
Yeah, you
And
never got to
yeah,
capitalize on them.
yeah, you never realize the value of those cards. Which means
So yeah, go ahead. I don't have anything to say. Go ahead.
uh,
I
which
literally don't have anything to
oh,
say.
okay.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut
Which
you off.
means the cards that you draw needs to be played for it to be useful. You can draw 15 million cards if your deck is that thick with Consecrated Sphinx. And if you don't play those cards are dead.
Didn't matter.
Didn't matter.
And then like we can even take a step back and like go like one level meta deeper. Like even if those cards like there's like the basic level where we're at where like if you didn't play it, they're useless. Which I would say to some extent is very true. But there's even one level deeper where it's like, well, because I have all these cards, my opponent might play differently. Or because I have all these cards, I have more strategies enabled.
Sure.
So I think the truth is probably somewhere in between.
Sure. That's fine. I can buy
But
that.
yeah, but like I think largely though, if a card had no realized bearing on your game,
Yeah.
and there wasn't like a significant chance that it would have played an effect on like a significant part of your game, then it didn't matter. Which is like, but most of the time that second condition doesn't really
Yeah.
matter.
Purely in the sense of card advantage, the cards don't matter if you don't play them.
Yeah, yep, yeah. Purely in the sense of card advantage, yeah,
Like
absolutely.
in like if you start bringing in, oh, I'm getting into his head because I have like 16 cards in my hand with Reliquary Tower out. Like those are different things. We can still talk
Yeah,
about them, but not this episode.
no,
In
exactly.
terms
Yeah,
of card
it's the money,
advantage, the card doesn't do anything if you don't play it.
right? Yes, you are on the money with that. And like with cards like Mana Leak, um, like I would say Mana Leak is like the perfect example to sum up like basically almost everything we've said so far about Ritual Card Advantage.
What is Mana
Where
Leak?
Mana Leak is a 2 mana counter spell, costs a 1 and a blue, and it's a counter target spell unless the controller pays 3 generic.
I just
And
thought it was like some kind of vegetable.
it does sound like a vegetable. But like it's Mana Leak is sorry, from a competitive sense, Mana Leak is a very good card, by the way. But like with Mana Leak in the early game, it's a 1-for-1.
Oh yeah.
But in the late game, I would say that this card is card disadvantage because in the late game when everybody has a lot of mana, it's quite bad. It looks silly.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So or like you might even argue, well, if I have like 2 or 3 of them, well, that's great. You have to spend 2 or 3 cards to like you're still putting yourself at virtual card disadvantage. And then if you end up having to spend 2 or 3 counter spells to get rid of that one spell, then you're realizing that disadvantage. So what about like card quality? Because we would also like lump that in
What do
and
you mean
categorize that
by
with virtual
card
card
quality? Do
advantage.
you mean like near mint or lightly played, heavily played?
That's a good like definition for what I could mean, but I mean within the game of Magic, like regardless of like physical card quality. I mean like
Okay.
I like how good are your cards?
Generally, if they make the cut into my deck, they're pretty good.
Right. What do you think of a card like Tormented Voice?
You discard cards to draw cards, so that gives you card advantage.
But
Kind of.
but Tormenting Voice. Just for the full text, for anybody that doesn't know, it's 1 in a red, discard a card, draw 2 cards.
Mhm.
Now, mathematically, this is a net 0 cards because
Sure,
you
because
spent
you're
1
you're
card.
spending Tormenting Voice and the extra card to draw 2
Yep,
cards.
you draw 2 cards. So, like, there's net 0 cards. So you might be thinking, well, like, I mean, isn't it reasonable to be like, well, why am I playing Tormented Voice? I'm just spending 2 mana to do nothing. Well,
Well,
not quite.
you're you're spending 2 useless cards at the moment. You're upgrading those 2 cards into something else that might be useful.
Right. And
And I think that's what card quality means. I still think the term may be a little bit confusing. But all it means is whether or not a card in your hand at that moment of time is useful to you. Like the life gain spell we talked about, that's really high quality when you're at 1 life.
but yeah, and like, but maybe that life gain card when you're like, and even board state, and like you really need like proactive strategies to pull ahead and win. That life gain card looked kind of silly, right? Well, now you can upgrade that, and now you might be able to draw into that planeswalker that you need. So, um, you're turning your less useful cards into more useful cards. Even though you're not netting any additional cards, you're still spending 2 cards to get 2 new cards. It can be very worth your while for card quality.
Mhm.
And like Faithless Looting, that's actually like until you flash it back, which like a lot of games you don't. Um, Faithless Looting is card loss, like net card loss actually. But it's still played. Like you don't just not play it. For reference, Faithless Looting is a red sorcery. It just costs a single red, draw 2, discard 2, and the flashback cost is 2 in a red. Same thing, draw 2, discard 2. So you draw 2, you discard 2. So you plus Faithless Looting. So you spent 3 cards and you only got 2 back. But this card is like the most commonly played card for like combo centric decks in I think basically every format. Like maybe not EDH, but I've seen
Right.
some weird EDH builds with it too.
Yeah, because when you're playing combo, you want to have your combo pieces, and every single card in your hand that is not the combo piece are considered low quality. You want to upgrade those as quickly as possible, basically, so you can play out your whole combo.
Right. So this is like card quality, card selection. You're not getting any cards. In fact, in the case of Faithless Looting, you're like losing out on cards until you flash it back, and then you're still net 0.
Yeah.
So,
In some
eh,
sense, I think the ultimate form of card quality are cards like Vampiric Tutor.
oh yeah, no, I agree. That's like I think that's like the highest form, the most pure quality, the highest grade of quality.
Yeah. You are s- you're spending a card for no immediate card draw, so for no cards, but you're guaranteeing your next draw to be something amazing.
Yeah, you get the one thing that you want exactly. No ifs, no buts, no ands. Like
Hmm.
exactly what you want.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree.
All it costs is the card itself, Vampiric Tutor, and 1 life, which you don't have, but you would have if you have the life gain spell.
So the real case we're making is play life game. But no, I agree. That's the highest grade of theoretical card quality. I 100% agree with that. And that's a good example too because it is actually played.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that was um it might seem surprising, but that was like almost like kind of like a crash course on like the fundamentals of card advantage and card uh virtual card advantage too. But it doesn't just end there. There's a little bit more. There's an extra step that we can take too to really um get this going in the right direction. So like after all that, I think the most glaring question that hopefully everybody is asking after all that is what's a card? Now we can revisit this question. What is a card?
Um, I think what a card really is, in terms of Magic, at least, just in Magic, everything you can see on the board can be considered a card. Your mountain is a card. your Trostani Summoner is a card. Now, that life gain spell in your hand, that may not be a card yet, but when you play it, that's also a card. But at the same time, they're not really anything. They're just there. They already modified the rules of the game. You have a 2/2 on the board now. Congratulations.
Yeah, and it's we often like will ascribe value or lack of value based on like raw card advantage. Like, oh, I have to 2-for-1 myself to play this card. But what if it's like a really good card?
Like
Or
what?
like yeah, or like what? Or sometimes like I don't want to make that play because that means I'll be like put down a card disadvantage. Like even the fact that even the fact that you can with raw card advantage you can physically count and observe like the mathematical differences, the real differences between card quantity between two or more players, I guess. The value of cards like it just varies from point to point in the game. It's never just like this static thing where it's like, yeah, I drew 5 cards, I'm winning. You
Yeah,
remember
no.
that? You remember that Thousand Island deck I was talking about? The Thousand Island Justin deck.
Oh yeah, absolutely. How
Okay,
would anyone forget about your Thousand Island Justin deck?
I don't know, but
Like,
just as a reminder, if you don't know, it's 1,000 islands, 4 battle of wits, and 4 treasure hunts. All right.
yeah, it's very
Now
expensive. I actually
it's
don't think you should.
expensive,
I actually don't think you should run Treasure Hunt
really.
because what if your 4 Battle of Wits are buried in the bottom?
Well, if my 4 battle of wits are on the bottom, I'm probably not winning that game
All
anyway.
right, that's true. That's true. All right,
Yep.
I'll give you that. That's fine.
So this is like the example of your cards will vary. It varies on your deck, it varies on your matchup, it also varies on the point in the game you're playing it in. Are you winning? Are you losing? Are you like in a stalemate kind of like alright, so treasure hunt. If I cast treasure hunt in my Thousand Island dressing deck, alright, I could draw 100 islands and then my battle of wits and be like, dude, I'm winning. I just drew 100 cards,
Mm-hmm.
but they're all islands.
Mm-hmm. But one of them's Battle of Wits.
One of them Battle of Wits, but the rest of them are islands. So Battle of Wits is the important one, right?
Right.
What the example is illustrating is that card quantity, while it's a good symptom of being ahead and behind, doesn't always tell the full story.
Oh no. It definitely doesn't. Like your opponents, they can look at your hand. If every information is hidden, they can look at your hand. Oh my gosh, yes, they have 20 cards in hand, and I have 3. It's daunting for them to think about. But once they find out that the 20 cards in your hand are all mountains, who cares? You're playing red.
Yeah, it's.
How did you get to 20 cards when you're playing red?
I don't know. They might be playing red incorrectly.
Uh huh. So we explained earlier how killing your opponent blanks their whole hand. So does being up in cards matter if you're actually low to the ground aggro against a late game control deck that against a late game control deck that's stabilized?
I would argue no. Probably not. Probably not. Honestly, like
Right.
if they're, my reasoning is like if they're at 30 life or whatever, and let's say I have the most busted aggro card, right?
Uh
That
huh. You have
says
all the
1 mana.
mentors in your hand.
Yeah, yeah. Or like maybe I have this card that's like 1 mana can't be countered under any circumstance, can't be returned to your hand, none of that, can't be returned. It's like this is going to resolve. Like draw 5 cards. Okay. Um, what if like I'm playing that and then they only have 3 cards in hand? It doesn't really matter too much because they're at like 30, 40, 50 life or whatever. And but I yeah, sure, I just drew 5 cards, but my cards are low to the ground. Um it's the same thing with Mana League. As the game goes on, these cards get worse and worse and worse.
Mm-hmm.
So like it's uh, they suck. These cards just suck. I want to switch seats. Like, can we switch decks, please?
Yeah, jeez. But that's because you're playing, why would you be playing an aggro deck against a control deck? I highly advise against that.
I don't know.
Like,
I don't know. But in
why would you play against a control deck that's stabilized? Why can't you play one that's not stabilized?
Should do a better job of being aggro in the early game. I don't
Jeez.
know, man. So with all that, like, I don't know. I feel like that's kind of, I think it's overall like kind of valuable information that isn't put out there. And like, what do you think, in your opinion, why do you think it's important to learn this deep dive into card advantage?
I think it's important for people to be able to evaluate the game state and their own position during any time of the game. And one way to do that is to know is to be able to break down and quantify how well you're doing relative to your opponent, and being able to count the number of cards, which is very easy, is one way to go about it. Card advantage is easy to count because you can literally point at every permanence on the board and say, "My number is bigger, I win."
You can flop it out on the table and say mine is bigger.
Yeah, like you're doing better most of the time if you have more permanence out than your opponent.
Yeah, that's a great symptom. Excellent symptom of like who's
It's not
winning and who's
always
not.
true. It's not always true, but most of the time it is.
I
Um,
agree.
like sometimes it's not. When your opponent is playing, you win the game. You win the game cards, but
Yeah.
let's not introduce too much variance into this
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
conversation.
yeah. I think another upside is like you don't have to wait for the pros to like say that something's good or bad.
Hmm.
You can just make that choice on your own.
Yeah.
I remember back at a big, really big, important like Star City games like regionals and tournament. I remember I was playing for Gutshot that same weekend. Like no, like the deck list for the Pro Tour haven't been released yet. Nobody saw Gutshot yet because this was the day before the Pro Tour. Um, I was
Which
playing
Pro
for
Tour
Gutshot
was
in the
it?
sideboard. I don't know the official name, but it was Pro Tour or Eldrazi because everybody that was the modern where everybody's playing Eldrazi.
Oh my gosh, Eldrazi Winter.
Yeah, yeah, no, that was the Eldrazi Winter, and then
Oh
everything got
boy.
banned. Yeah. I was playing four gut shots that weekend because I was able to evaluate correctly that the four gut shots like mana leak might end up being virtual card disadvantage in the late game, but I thought the advantage in the early game that I brought was worth it.
You're like, oh, Eldrazi Sky Spawner is a card.
Yeah,
That shot will be a card too.
all those nasty X ones are going to be bad, so I should probably deal with them.
That makes sense.
Maybe. And like to expand on what you said also is like late game decision making or like mid game decision making, maybe even early game, but mostly like mid and late game, or where like you have the most noticeable effect. So if you're behind on cards and you have a board though, this might sound like kind of a niche like setup, but in reality it's a lot more common than you might think. If you're behind on cards and but you have a board or a bigger board at least, if you like exchange everything off one for one, like somehow magically, what's gonna happen is you're gonna reach this end game situation where your opponent's just up cards and you have no chance of winning.
Hmm.
But if you keep that inequality of well, I have a board, but they have a better hand, if you keep this inequality like on the board, you have a chance of like tempering them out.
Yeah, like once you identify that you're not at a card advantage state, you know that you already lost the card advantage battle. Maybe you should move your focus to tempo advantage or life advantage.
Right, and like if you can kill them, then it doesn't matter that they're up in cards. You won the game.
Hmm.
So, that's like that's huge. And if you actually play burn or like aggro decks, you get put in that situation a lot. You have to decide: do I abandon the board or like do I try to maintain the board and fight for board? It might not sound like it's a card advantage thing, but it's absolutely a card advantage thing because burn and card quantity go hand in hand, or like damage dealt to the opponent um is like calculated basically on how many cards you have, effective cards. So it sounds niche, but it's really not. One last card I want to discuss: Pack Rat.
Pack Rat,
Pack Rat.
Rat
So
Pat,
Rack Pack. Hey, that's mine. I said that.
Game Theory. Thanks for watching.
Oh no. Anyways, Pack Rat is a one in the black. One no, no, it's a one in the black star rat, and power toughness were equal to the amount of rats you had. I think, right? That's it, right? It's not plus
Yeah,
one or anything. I'm
that's it.
like pretty sure.
Plus one, plus one.
Okay. Yep. And basically, that was it. But it also had this ability. You can pay 2 and a black and discard a card. So 3 mana total plus discarding a card, and you can make a token copy of Pack Rat on the battlefield.
Mm-hmm.
And this was back in like the mono black days, like the one that everybody hated, where it was like Thoughtseize Pack Rat,
Oh
and then
my
people just rage
gosh.
quit.
Yeah, that sounds
That deck was
busted.
it was good for a reason. So like we can apply this to like Pack Rat. So like when would you say like you should go in on Pack Rat? Like are those cards? Like we can first just probably just automatically say, well, they're tokens, they're not cards, right?
Well, they are definitely cards because I would definitely be able to see a difference that that card is making. Your original Pack Rat just by itself is a 1/1, but by discarding a card and creating that one extra, thing, you added 3/3 to the board. You added 3 points of power and 3 points of toughness to the board because now you have 2/2/2s. Is a 1/1/1.
So I what if we looked at it like this too? Would you play a 2 mana 1/1 in your deck?
It depends. If it's packed wrecked, I'll probably
No, no,
play
no,
it
no.
in
Just
black.
no, just a vanilla 2 mana 1/1.
Oh, definitely not. That's crazy.
Yeah, I
Why
would.
would you?
But like that. But now, would you play like Would you play what is? Would you play a 5 mana 5 mana get 2/2/2s?
It's starting to get better, but maybe not. Not yet.
Okay. What if you had 8 mana 3/3/3s?
It's starting to sound busted.
Right. And I think it's Pack Rat's a weird case where it's like on top of that you also have to discard cards.
Hmm.
But like until you get to that third rat, it doesn't look that good.
Yeah, unless and this is like we're kind of escaping the card advantage realm here, but
Yeah, a little bit.
Pact Rect is really good in terms of card advantage because every time you activate that ability, the card that it produces gets significantly better than the last. It is
Yeah,
marginally better
probably.
than the last one.
Yeah, probably better. Like in the early game, when you only have one pack rat token, like the card that you're discarding is likely better than what you're getting. But after you make that initial investment,
Yeah, it's worth it, right? Now we're entering the realm of marginal cost and marginal benefit. You want to push and get to the point where your marginal benefit is better than the marginal cost, and
hmm
beyond that point, you just want to discard every turn.
yeah. Oh my god, I can't tell you the amount of games I've seen where like some poor sap was playing against mono black. I don't know what they were playing. Maybe they're playing like John Monster or something. I don't know. But like the other opponent or the other player like went off on pack rat. They were all in on the pack rat plan, and they'll just be sitting there with like 4 pack rat tokens, and like every turn they didn't even look at the card. They just like discarded it and like, okay, make my 5th pack rat token or
Hmm.
whatever. And it was sad. Like the other guy was just like not just one time, like a lot of times I would see there and just see these players just sitting in defeat, being like, how did things get like this? What am I doing with my life? Why does he have 5 pack rat tokens? And like even when he draws land, it's not dead.
Right, exactly. Just discard it. So I think another like that is one extreme of the example, and it's really interesting because marginal cost and marginal benefit matters in this case.
Absolutely,
Um,
absolutely.
there are also cards that, and here we're entering the realm where um different cards do different things. So when when a card gives you this much perceived value in one case, when you move it to a different case, it may be a lot better. So it may not, in the original case, it may worth only like one card. In the new case, it may worth like five cards. So here's the example I want to bring up. There's a card called Omnath Locus of Rage.
I like
Now,
that card.
Omnath is a very interesting card. It's played in Commander a lot, but one of the more popular builds is 99 lands, half of them mountains and half of them forests. And here's what the card does: it's 3 red, red, green, green for a 5/5 with landfall. Whenever a land enters the battlefield under your control, you put a 5/5 red and green elemental creature token onto the battlefield. Whenever Omnath, Locus of Rage, or an other elemental you control dies, Omnath deals 3 damage to target creature or player. So essentially, usually your forests, your mountains, they're not worth a lot. They help you play cards, sure, but that's just it, right? It doesn't do
Mhm.
anything
Yeah.
beyond that. Well, in this deck, in this 99 land Omnath commander deck, the first 7, the lands are valued about equally,
Yeah,
as your
yeah.
other things. But once you play Omnath, the next turn when you
Now all
draw
your
that
lands are
land,
just yeah,
yeah, now all your lands are worth a lot more than what they were before. Because
yeah.
they make a 5/5 that says when it dies, it deals 3 damage to any target.
Yeah, it really just drives home the point of, like, card value is dynamic, is not static. And that is something that I'm fairly confident is not said at all. Like, it's not said enough, if at all. Card value is not static. You you can't just be like, "I drew 10 cards, but why did I lose?" It
Mm,
it like, it's dynamic, it's changing, it varies. Like, Omnath was, like, the perfect example with lands, I think.
yeah, absolutely. So, I think that's about it, like, about the topic, but it's not over yet.
No, actually, like, speaking of our card advantage topic, um, we actually had a listener, like, ask for kind of, like, advice. Divination versus Mystic
Yeah,
Archaeologist.
they're trying to fit the 58th card into their deck. Sorry,
And,
59th card. Like, this is
well,
literally the last card.
yeah, and the one thing that's a little weird is they didn't send a deck list. They were like, I want to keep this deck list private. I don't want to send it together. We get it. That's fine. But it makes it like kind of difficult in like recommending which one over another. But we'll do our best.
Yeah, so what we're gonna do is, instead of telling you this card or that card is better, we're just going to compare and contrast the two cards, and you can decide for yourself which one is better.
Well, what do you like about divination? What's a positive about divination to you?
Definition is very, very consistent. 2 and a blue, draw 2 on your main phase is good early, is good late. In decks that runs blue, usually is controlly. So, blanking out your turn to draw 2 cards usually isn't that bad.
What's a negative though for divination?
Um, it doesn't affect the board state. So, like I said, usually in that kind of deck is fine, but on turn 3, if all you can cast is divination, you're still gonna cast it, but it's not going to do anything to the 5 mentor creatures you're staring down because your opponent is playing Boros.
Yeah, that's a little scary. You definitely will have to like weigh if you can afford to take that time off. Another thing that I'd like to add in the sense of Brawl and Brawl's context with the top end meta that we have is while the floor for divination is high, the ceiling for divination is kind of low.
Yeah, but in fact, I would argue the ceiling and the floor is only 1 card difference. it
I agree.
yeah, you either draw the 2 cards or your card gets countered, which, draw out one of your opponent's card. So it's either 2 for 1 or 1 for 1.
And like one last positive though that I can easily think of for divination is it's early enough to help you like smooth out your draws, get your early lands, get the belt, like and like get going.
Yeah.
All right, Mystic Archaeologist. What does it do?
It's 1 in the blue for 2/1 human wizard creature. It's a bear. With upside, though,
Ooh, okay.
because you can pay 3 blue blue to draw 2 cards.
Hmm. I- You remember the card Jace's Ingenuity?
I do not remember. What does it do?
It's the same thing as the ability, but you get to draw 3 instead in instant speed.
Oh.
So yeah, so the standard is like this is one card under the standard, which is a lot because it's 66% of the standard of what it should be at that mana cost.
Mhm. But it doesn't
But
cost you a card to draw the 2 cards.
yeah, that's the upside is this is repeatable too, and instant speed.
That sounds pretty good.
Yeah, but a negative against this card, which is a pretty big negative, is like since we're weighing divination versus mystic archaeologist, and you can't have both. That's under like that assumption you can't do both. Is like this card might just die, and you will never get that
Yeah.
card draw.
We are in the same standard with Goblin Chain Roller,
Mm.
and this is a X1. Why would you do that to yourself?
I don't know why you do that to yourself. And
But if your opponent is not playing red, then potentially this draws you more than 2 cards. It can
yeah,
sit there and draw you 2 every turn.
oh yeah, this has a huge upside, huge upside.
Mhm.
And honestly, if I could, I haven't we haven't seen your list, but obviously, if you could play both, but
Yeah.
under the assumption that you can't, which is why you're asking.
Yeah. Um, lower lower floor and higher ceiling means higher variance. And are you a fan of variance? I mean, that's up to you. So
Yeah, personal preference.
that's our analysis of the cards. I mean, I think it's a fair analysis.
Yeah.
What would be interesting though if we look at a different card that's actually not in our standard, but I think it would be an interesting case to complement our episode. What do you think of Howling Mine?
Uh, you know, Howling Mine is alright. I'm under the belief that like in Magic's in like 1v1, it's a zero sum game. So I'm under the belief that like nothing is truly like even. Like sure we could have like a mathematical even exchange like 1 for 1 of cards. But I think one side is always better off than the other in like choices. So with Howling Mine, you're spending
2
what is it
mana
like two
for a
mana, two
card for an
mana.
artifact that
Uh,
says
yeah,
at the beginning of each player's draw step, if the card's untapped, that player draws an additional card.
right. So with Howling Mine, the person playing it is I think is disadvantaged, even though you're gonna go 1 for 1 on cards.
Yeah,
Like the player casting Howling Mine is disadvantaged because they have to spend their time paying the 2 mana, but also their opponent gets to go first with like they get all their mana and the extra card before you get all your mana and the extra card.
yeah.
So like sure you're mathematically like even in card advantage, both players just get an extra card every turn. I think the player on the receiving end is benefited more
Okay, most of the time, anyways, because if your
most of the time.
opponent has 1 card left in hand, or in the deck,
Oh,
has 1
oh,
card
that's
left
bad.
in the deck, yeah, and you play Howling Mine won you the game, man.
But what if they have a laboratory maniac out?
Then you probably don't want to play the Howling Mine. Why would you do that? Jesus Christ.
Don't do that to yourself. But yeah, like besides those like weird niche, maybe not so niche circumstances, I think probably don't want to play Howling Mine. What do you think?
Well, I think, uh, again, this is straying away from the car vintage topic, but if you're playing Howling Mine, you would probably have a very good reason of doing so. So, play Howling Mine in a deck that where Howling Mine belongs.
Right. So like if you're like a combo deck or a deck that wants to like if you get more value out of seeing those cards, if that value, that cost or if that benefit outweighs the cost of your opponent being able to go first with the extra card and all of his mana, then you should absolutely play Howling Mine.
Exactly. Exact same argument as playing 99 ends in your Omnath deck. Exactly.
That's such a I love Omnath. He's a really fun
Yeah,
commander to play.
he's big and jolly, and it's like Santa Claus in green
Dude,
and
he's
red.
red green.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, I think that's our topic for today. And if you have any questions for us, like any advice you need or any deck doctor, we like we love doctoring decks because it basically means you gave us a episode topic. So thank you very
Oh
much.
no.
Uh,
Oh no.
but
He said it. The madman.
but if you have anything you want to talk to us about, you can find us on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube at Brawling Pit. You can email us at brawlingpitmtg@gmail.com. Find us on Reddit at r/Brawling Pit, or you can find our official website at brawlingpit.com.
We're also judges.
We're also judges. But as always, I've been Jonathan, and he's been Jacob. Thanks for listening. So, Jacob,
What's up?
I hate you.
Oh. Alright.
So, listeners, if you're confused why I hate him, because he introduced me to a game called Slay the Spire, and
I did
that's
no such thing. I deny it.
and that's
I deny
wrecking my
all.
life right now because I spent so much time on that stupid game. I can literally sit down on a chair in front of my computer for 6 hours wanting to play one more game of Slay the Spire. For those of you who
Dude,
doesn't know, it's a deck building game that's kind of like Ascension, but kind of, you're progressing through a dungeon. It's like a roguelike, and you're using your deck to battle through.
dude. Alright, first of all, I deny all allegations of this. But second of all, I have a similar problem. It's like I just want to play one more. Like you die a stupid death or whatever. Like, oh come on, it can't end like that. And you like load up the next game.
Yeah, but if you win gloriously, you're like, I want to pull that off against it because it felt so good. And you start
Exactly.
another game.
Like where do you stop?
You will never stop.
Oh
I think that's the
no.
problem of the game, which is why I hate Jacob, because he introduced me to this stupid piece of
I deny all
gaming
allegations
technology.
to this.
Oh my gosh.